Yeah, I know that not only you, but a number of other people that analyze Miami football, including Cam Underwood, were very optimistic about Isaiah Bond committing to the U. Do you think so? So it's just said and done in regards to the current commitment at the University of Florida. Do you have any insight into whether this is a firm commit, whether there is hope out there to bring him back into the fold later?
I think there always is, especially when in-state players. Mark, you're dealing with. Well, he's not in-state. Excuse me. He's a Georgia young man, so excuse me. He's not from the state of Florida. But number one, you got to go out there and play the damn game. You got to line up. You got to play your brand of your brand of football. Okay. Now we're going to be going up into his home state to play Alabama, all likely, yes, and a loss. But depending on how you go up there and play that game, you can speak to Isaiah Bond as far as like, hey, you are someone that can come here and help us take that next step to where we win a game like that. Eerily similar to how a lot of that type of recruiting was early in 2019 when Miami took UF and eventually Orange Bowl winning, 11-win, back-to-back winning team to the brink up in Orlando, the game that I was at. And a lot of the coaches use that. Like, hey, you come here and we can win games like that. You saw when we play our hardest, when we're in there toe-to-toe, we got a good scheme, we can play with the big boys, and we ended up just coming up short. So, I wish him all the best. I also know that he's really big into track and field, and UF has one of the best track and field programs in college sports. So, which I've always argued that there's a couple sports that the University of Miami should be very, very good at, and a couple of them even better than football, soccer and track and field being two of them. Well, I would argue that track and field should be on the same par as football, but baseball and men's soccer should probably be the best in all of college sports. But, I'm not one of the board of trustees, and I understand we are a private institution, and our board of trustees love to use that as a crutch to not get things done. So, back on Isaiah Bond, it hurts, yes, because he was one of those players that you kind of penciled it in. You're like, you know what? We don't have to worry about that. We're going to get the ball rolling, going into a couple other things here. But he decides to make his commitment. All you can continuously do is continue to recruit the young man, continue that great relationship with the young man, and grow from there. Hey, he may not answer the phone anymore. He may not text you back anymore, but you continue to be respectful and keep that bridge door open, because December is still a bit ways away. And that'll be his first opportunity to put pen to paper, to pick an institution. And if you kept a great relationship, who's to say UF even holds on to him? Maybe they kick him out. Maybe they get a bigger 5-star, and then they're like, we kind of want to seek shelter elsewhere. Hashtag Nick Diaz says that. And maybe Miami can come in through the back door. But I think we're going to be in good hands moving forward here in about a week and a half with another receiver who's very similar to his build and his style, who is going to more likely than not commit, but I don't want to jinx it because I've already done that. So, that's what we're looking at right now.
I will ask you this, wholesome one. If they do, in fact, get that target, or maybe another 2 or 3 guys that you and others may have in mind, is it what you would consider, based on what you know, based on what you've seen on film, a significant downgrade, or in that general tier of athlete?
They're very similar. Okay, the player I'm talking about is Quan Lee. Okay, so Quan Lee is from the Florida area. He's from Gainesville. Hometown is Gainesville, Florida, and they don't really want to rock with him. They chose Isaiah Bond over him. So, they went out of state to go grab a young man when you have a borderline 4-star who's eerily similar, who does the same thing in your own city. So that's kind of how that is. I wouldn't necessarily say that there's just this huge drop-off and, oh, man, we missed out on this guy and we got the breadcrumbs. Not really saying that. I also think this staff wants to be able to evaluate these young men once they come down for Paradise Camp on June 1st. Number one, they want to sit down and want to speak to the parents. They want to speak to the young man in person. They want to build that relationship before they accept commitments. And I'm excited about us doing it that way because, man, I tell you, Al Golden had great recruiting classes early in May and April and June. Mark Richt had the #1 recruiting class after the 2017 season, going into May of 2018. We were humming in recruiting. This guy, that guy, CJ Henderson, that guy, boom, 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 and they did not sign. So it's. Am I a little disheartened by it? Slightly, but I understand that it's more about continuing that relationship, Mark. We've been talking about this for years. Relationships are the key, not only in sports, in life, period. Good relationships, having a good name, keeping your word, things of that nature, being a good spirited person, that's built on relationships. And when it comes to recruiting and it comes to college football, there's nothing like still being a good person and having a great relationship with those players. And even if they do pick another institution, you give them a hug and tell them, good luck in your journey. If you ever need anything, I'm still a phone call away. And I think that's the young people and that's the adults that we have in the building down in Coral Gables for the University of Miami.
Quan Lee's the 85th rated wide receiver in the country. He's number 88 in the state of Florida, regardless of position. And so just to compare that to what the experts are saying at 247 Sports, the composite against Isaiah Bond, 49th rated athlete, 56th rated player in the state of Georgia. Of course, Georgia doesn't have the quantity of my apologies for that, does not have
George calling in.
he wasn't too happy with that. Number 56 rated player in the state of Georgia, which Georgia is high rising when it comes to the volume and the quality of athletes, but still not at the Florida level. What really interests me here when I look at these rankings, and I know you're not a huge believer, you think there's some value there, but you're not a huge believer in the rankings, is that 247 Sports. Okay, I'm looking at Isaiah Bond. 247 Sports has him rated as the 14th athlete in the country, while the composite's at number 49. And they've got him rated, 247 Sports, as the 23rd rated player in Georgia, as opposed to number 56. Now, there's only 3 in the composite, and 247's one of them. So they're a third of that rating. So the other 2 must be completely off the map compared to 247 on Isaiah Bond. That you usually see a more likely, a more close comparison and line of thinking on that particular player.
I mean, heck, like I always say, Mark, when it comes to those recruiting things, man, you always have to keep in mind here, Mark, you're really looking at a player's highlight tape. This is the best that they can put together to give to you to show their best plays. Okay. And sometimes you're able to sit there and say, you know what? I think this young man could take another step. There's another level he can get to. But in some instances, you're kind of like, he may already be kind of peaked out here. He might already, I think he either is going to come here and be the same player, slightly better, or he's going to kind of have a steady, come down. So that's where it kind of can get fishy for you in the evaluation process. And I could look at a young man, you could look at a young man and see 2 completely different things. So that's why I always kind of go with my own eye. And that's why, in my opinion, I still like Isaiah Bond. But Quan Lee's film is not too much far off to where I can understand us losing that battle and still step into another young man who's eerily similar.